Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 2, text number 9. Buddha Kesha Parantapa.
Buddha Kesha Parantapa.
Nayotya iti Govindam.
Nayotya iti Govindam.
Vatushnim Babuvaha.
Vatushnim Babuvaha. Sanjaya.
Sanjay said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of the enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. Purport. Dhritarashtra must have been very glad to understand that Arjuna was not going to fight and was instead leaving the battlefield for the begging profession. But Sanjay disappointed him again in relating that Arjuna was competent to kill his enemies, Parantapa. Although Arjuna was, for the time being, overwhelmed with false grief due to family affection, he surrendered unto Krishna, the Supreme Spiritual Master, as a disciple. This indicated that he would soon be freed from the false lamentation resulting from family affection, and would be enlightened with perfect knowledge of self-realization or Krishna consciousness, and would then surely fight. Thus, Dhritarashtra's joy would be frustrated, since Arjuna would be enlightened by Krishna and would fight to the end. Sanjay uvacha evam uktva rishikesham buddhakesham parantapa nayotsya iti govinda uktva tushnim babuvaha. Sanjay said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. So, Sanjay heard from, Dhritarashtra heard from Sanjay that Arjuna was not going to fight. Nayotsye iti Govinda. Nayotsye, I won't fight. So, Dhritarashtra must have been jubilant. Finally, without Arjuna, this battle will be easy. Because then we will just walk right over everyone. No one can stop us. Arjuna was the only one who could have stopped us. So when he heard this, he was jubilant. But Sanjay, because he became empowered by Vyasadeva, who was the father of Dhritarashtra, so he got special empowerment by Vyasadeva to see what is happening on the battlefield, of course, etc., so that he could relate everything to Dhritarashtra, who was blind and sitting in the palace. So Sanjay also said, first of all, he called Krishna Rishikesha. Rishikesha, Evam Mukta, Rishikesha. Rishikesha means the master of the senses. So, Arjuna's senses are controlled by Krishna. So when he is saying, I shall not fight, there must be some higher purpose to it. There must be some higher purpose to this statement. Otherwise, why would Arjuna, as we explained last night, the greatest warrior in the history of the world, why would he give up his position of fighting simply because of some family grief. So, Rishikesha, it must have something to do with Krishna. It must have something to do with Krishna. Exactly what? That will remain to be seen. And furthermore, Arjuna is Gudakesha. Krishna is Rishikesha, Arjuna is Gudakesha. Gudakesha means the one who can conquer ignorance or sleep. One who conquers ignorance in this material world, he is known as Gudakesha. Arjuna's another name is Gudakesha, the conqueror of ignorance. So, again, he will hear from Krishna and he will conquer ignorance. Krishna is giving him inspiration to talk in a certain way. Arjuna has full capacity to conquer ignorance, especially when he hears from Krishna. And then, Parantapa, he will conquer his enemies. These three names, Rishikesha, Gudakesha, and Parantapa, are used by Sanjay in a very scientific fashion. First, Krishna is controlling the senses of Arjuna. Arjuna is capable of conquering ignorance, and he will when he hears from Krishna. And then he will fight and will destroy the enemies. Although, in this verse, Sanjay is saying that Arjuna said, Nayotsye, I shall not fight. It's a very interesting verse with all these complicated points. A very simple verse, isn't it? But actually there are many deep points in this verse. Many deep points. Deep and interesting points. Actually the whole Bhagavad Gita is like that. If you actually want to understand Bhagavad Gita, it may take you a whole lifetime. Because each and every one of these points made by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is very special. And this verse is not even spoken by Krishna, it's spoken by Sanjay. But because he was enlightened by Vyasadeva, he was able to give very wonderful word order in this verse to exactly tie together a package of meanings, which ultimately means Dhritarashtra, don't become falsely jubilant because the end has not yet come. You have not yet seen the end of this situation. It is not yet over. What will happen? We will see that Arjuna will become enlightened by Krishna. Arjuna will understand everything from Krishna. Krishna will say at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Itite jnanam akyatam guyam guyataram maya vimrishya shada sheshena yatejtasi tata kuru. Another very deep verse. Of course you can quote any verse from Bhagavad Gita and say that. But this verse has a special significance because Krishna said, now I have told you everything. I have told you all knowledge. Confidential knowledge. Guyam guyataram. Confidential and most confidential knowledge. I have told you. Now, deliberate on this knowledge fully and then do what you like. Now that is amazing. Krishna has just finished some 600 something verses of instructions to Arjuna. And he's completely detached. He says to Arjuna, you've heard everything. Some of the knowledge is quite confidential. You heard it. Now deliberate on it. Think about it. And then do whatever you like. You're completely free. Anybody can do what he likes at any point in time. That is the nature of existence. Swarat, Krishna is fully independent. The living entity is also independent, but minutely independent. The living entity is minutely independent. He has very teeny little independence. So, when the living entity is told by Krishna, deliberate on this fully and do what you like, the living entity is thus being given the freedom by Krishna to make the right or wrong choice. Because in the very next verse Krishna says, but if out of ignorance you disregard my instructions and act falsely, you will suffer. Although Krishna has given Arjuna freedom, in the next verse he's saying, but if you misuse your freedom, you will suffer. You won't like it. So Krishna, although he gives you freedom, he also gives you warnings. It's like the Lord within the heart, the super soul within the heart. The super soul within the heart, he gives one instruction. Tells you what he wants you to do. But what do you say to the super soul? You say, no. I will not listen to your instruction. This is just conscience. It is something which is created by some religion or by some social pressure or some moral principles. But actually, there is no such thing as religion or moral principles. It is all mental concoction. Actually, there is no God, there is no controller, there is no enjoyer, there is no basis upon this existence. It is all just a manifestation of lust and nothing more. They foolishly think like this. Asacham apratishtam te jagarahornishranam parasparasam bhutam kimanyat kamahaitukam. Asacham, this creation has no truth to it. The demons, they say that. Even the Mayavadis, they say that. Brahma Sacham Jagad Mithya. Brahma, or the spiritual sky, spiritual quality, spiritual energy, is truth. And Jagat, this material universe, is false. So the demons, they say like that. Asacham, it is false. There is no truth to this material universe. And apratishtam te, there is no foundation to it. There's no basis to it. The Mayavadis, they agree with these statements completely. They say there's no basis to this material world. It is simply illusion and nothing more. It is simply illusion and nothing more. It is simply the creation of Maya. Mayavadis say like that. No foundation to it. But Krishna, but the Mayavadis, they say that Brahman is the basis. of all existence. Brahman is the truth. But Krishna, he says in Bhagavad Gita, Pramanohi Pratishtaham. I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman. Pratishtaham. You may say everything is based on Brahman, but Krishna says, I am the basis of Brahman. So, you cannot get away with this nonsense claim that there is no basis. Apatishtam te jagadahor anishwaram. In this universe, there is no controller. Anishwaram. This, of course, is very hard to believe, since everything is running very nicely. Now the scientists say that just is chance. It just happened to work out that way. But when you think about it logically, if you've seen just some jumbled up things, you just take a bunch of things and jumble them up and throw them in the room. Let's say you take building blocks, child's building blocks, a whole box of them, shake them up and then throw them in the room. What order do they make? They don't make any order. They make a mess. They sometimes used to say, they don't say it anymore, but they used to say that, make that tight. They used to say, that in the beginning there was a chunk, and then the chunk exploded. Boom! And all creation flew into space, and thus the planets started twirling around the sun, which was the remnants of the chunk. And by centrifugal force, they maintained their orbit. Everything was going on very nicely. So, no one has ever seen an explosion create order and harmony. No one. Biggest explosions they ever made, where they actually threw them in war, were the atomic bombs which were last used in Nagasaki and Hiroshima in Japan. And these explosions simply created chaos. There were no order came from these explosions. No order came from these explosions. In World War II, the Americans bombed Germany, so much so that there were firestorms raging through the cities. There was no order created. It was complete destruction of order. All the buildings fell down, all the people were killed. There was no order. Yet the scientists would have us believe that from such a chaotic beginning as an explosion, all the order and harmony of this material universe came into being. This is clearly nonsense. But scientists never said that they had to say things which were not nonsense. They say things which are theory, which are not fact, which nobody has proven, but they say it must be like this. And although it's complete nonsense, everybody says, that sounds very intelligent. And they put it in the school books and teach the children that this is what actually happened. And when you try to explain that it didn't happen like that, it happened in another way, and that is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, they say this is just religious babble. They don't accept. But when they babble, scientific babble, they expect everybody to believe it. If the Shastra is babble, then certainly their mental speculation must be more babble. But they do not accept that, because they are proud and puffed up, and they think there is no controller other than chance. But there have been very, very interesting mathematical formulas proving there is no such thing as chance. Just like if you flip a coin, heads or tails, you say that? Flip a coin, heads or tails. So if you keep flipping the coin, then after a short period of time, it will turn out to be a very specific order, 50-50. 50% of the time it will be heads, 50% of the time it will be tails. I once, long time ago when I was first into computers, I once wrote a little program in BASIC using a random number generator to flip a coin on the computer. So I had the computer flip the coin. And I wanted to see how many times it would take before it became exactly 50-50. And if I remember correctly, this was 15 years ago, I can't remember exactly, but I think that it was before 100 flips, it became exactly 50-50. And it stayed that way completely. You can do that yourself, make your own program and find it out for yourself. It's easier than sitting there and flipping a coin. Your thumb gets tired. And similarly, there are all kinds of forms which come from random events. There is a study of chaos in Stanford University in America, in California. Chaos. They study chaos. Don't laugh. It's a good science. They have discovered something very good for us. There's no such thing as chaos. They show that, for example, when the rain is falling, actually they were taking rain and also when water flows down a waterfall and hits a rock and spills off in different directions, and it makes drops of water here and there. They found that if you analyze enough events, each drop of rain is called an event. Each drop of water is an event. If you analyze enough events, that you will see that it forms a wave pattern. Very complex, but still there is a wave pattern there. And you can understand chaos. So they theorize there's no such thing as chaos. And we agree. Everything is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nothing is chaos. So this idea, an Ishwaram, there's no controller, is false. There is a controller, but you can't see him, Mr. Scientist. You can't see him. And he doesn't let you see him either, because he doesn't show himself before demons. Krishna only shows himself before devotees. So there is a controller. And you can realize there's a controller by studying this material world sufficiently. But you can never understand there's no controller. Because how can you prove that? To prove there's no controller, you would have to go and ask or analyze each and every personality in the whole creation. If you just say there's no controller, that's a theory. Because there may be one person out there who's controlling. And since scientists are empiricists and they have to do everything by empirical method, the only way to prove there's no controller would be to examine each and every person and see if he's controlling. They would even run into big trouble as soon as they hit the demigods. Indra was controlling the rain. Varuna, who's controlling the waters, Vayu, who's controlling the air, Marut, who's controlling the wind, Agni, who's controlling the fire, Chandra, who's controlling the moon, Surya, who's controlling the sun. There are so many demigods. I can't possibly list them all. There's over 33,000 main demigods. There are also millions of sub-demigods and other kinds of demigods. I just gave a little list. The scientist says there's no controller, but I beg to differ. Even in the material world, there are so many administrators. But the scientist says, paraspara sambhutam. Everything is just getting together by interaction. Chemical interaction, magnetic interaction, electrical interaction, all these interactions. Energetic interactions, organic interactions. Kimanya kama hai to come. It's simply lust and nothing else. Such fools. And yet they proclaim themselves to be very intelligent. But Krishna does not think they are intelligent. He says, avajananti ma mudha. He says such persons are fools. Mudha, big asses. You know, the asses, they may make very nice sounds. Have you ever heard the ass speaking poetry? Have you? You have? Yes?
I heard the sound.
You heard about it, but you never heard the ass. I've heard the ass speaking poetry. And I've told you before also, I think. In Cairo, we had a preaching center there for a short while, although it was very dangerous because they had a law that said anybody preaching other religions was to be executed. So we were trying anyway to preach a little bit. We did something. So outside the window of our apartment on the other side of the street was an ass who every day would come early in the morning, around 5 in the morning. He'd come from the fields with a farmer carrying a load of vegetables, which the farmer used to give to the store. He used to have a store. He used to sell the vegetables there. And the ass had to sit outside the store and just eat some grass every now and then for the whole day. And around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, the farmer would go back. So that ass, he had 3 occupations, or maybe 4 occupations, as far as I could examine. One occupation was whenever the female asses used to come by, was he used to jump up and down. Another occupation was when the farmer used to throw some grass in front of him, a little grass, he used to eat it. Another occupation was to basically just space out all day. But the occupation which I think was the most favorite of all his occupations was saying poetry. He would look for a second, he would ponder, then he would go, showing his teeth like that. Then he would look around. And he would see, who has heard my wonderful poetry? And then again he would speak some more poetry. And he would look around. Once I even saw he was speaking so much poetry, he must have been reciting his version of Shakespeare. Then the farmer came out with a stick and hit him and told him to shut up. And then he was shocked. And you could see this ass was deeply insulted. He was just deeply insulted. He was shaking his head, kicking the ground. He told me to shut up. He doesn't appreciate my poetry. How frustrated was that poor ass. So even the ass speaks great poetry. What to speak of the ass, even the scientist, who is no better than the ass. Gokara. No better than the camel or the cow or the ass. Why? Because he's thinking that that my body is the self, my wife and children are the expansions of myself, my country is worshipable because it's the land of my birth, and that this, one goes to the holy places, he thinks, just to take a bath and not to associate with the saintly persons there. So therefore, he's no better than the cow or the ass. There's a verse like that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto. So, the scientists definitely think like that. Yeah? They think that this body of Tridhatu, mucus, air, and bile, is the self. Therefore, they are foolish. And yet, they try to proclaim what is the fact. They do not know. Therefore, we do not listen to scientists. If anyone out there is still listening to scientists, well,
I studied
physics. Too bad. Anyway, we recommend that you study Krishna consciousness. And you can go on studying physics. And after you finish studying physics, you will find out that it's a complete waste of time. And then you will become full-time devotee and give up all such foolish ideas that you can control this material world with physics, chemistry, biology, astronomy, or whatever. Soon people will understand this more in detail, especially this foolish idea that they have that life is just a combination of chemicals and this universe is just a chance combination of material ingredients. These ideas are falling rapidly. People are no longer accepting these ideas as readily as they used to. And evolution is rapidly falling down completely. Especially after that wonderful book by our Bhaktivedanta Institute called Forbidden Archaeology. Such a wonderful book. Shows how there have been human civilized men on this planet for millions of years. And that this archaeologists have discovered evidence to prove that. But because it didn't make any sense to them, since they theorized man is only, some thousands of years old, therefore they rejected these ideas. They rejected these ideas. And our book takes all those ideas that they rejected and puts them all in one book. And then it comes out to be a very wonderful proof that actually they have falsely rejected. Because the real conclusion is that human beings have been there as long as anyone. So, if you like, you can believe scientists. If you like, you can believe Krishna. It's up to you. As for me, I believe Krishna. I never was much of a scientist in school. And after hearing from Srila Prabhupada, I'm glad. So when you hear from Krishna, as Arjuna heard from Krishna, then all of these false understandings of existence fall away. And you hear from Krishna as spiritual master, you then come to understand what is the actual truth. Then you become liberated. Scientists can never become liberated. That is impossible. Because he has no understanding outside of the material realm. Therefore, we shall not make the same mistake. We shall surrender to Krishna, accept his instructions, and go back home, back to God. And be happy too. There is no chance, there is no such thing as an existence without a foundation. There is no such thing as a phenomena without a controller. Everything is controlled strictly in this material world under the direction of the Lord. Let us accept that and become satisfied that we are also under control. It's like Krishna's name here, Rishikesha, the controller of the senses. Krishna is ultimately the controller of everything. And another interesting name, there are 4 names used in this verse. Arjuna says, Nayotse iti Govinda. The last name used in that verse is Govinda. Govinda is he who gives pleasure to the senses. Krishna gives pleasure to the living entities. So by surrendering to Krishna, Arjuna would ultimately come to the platform of pleasure, happiness, blissfulness. Even though it seems now that this battle will be something which will cause trouble to him, ultimately he will be able to realize that Krishna's words were right. He should fight, and thus he will attain blissfulness. So in this way we may understand many different understandings of this verse, and thus become perfected in our understanding of Krishna through reading his book, Bhagavad Gita, as it has been presented by Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
First of all, I want to beg you for forgiveness. Some of the devotees told me that my last question yesterday was offensive.
No, it's all right. No, there's no problem.
So please, you told us that in such situation one must not only ask for forgiveness, but also I must ask you to pray to Krishna for me. That were your words. So
No, it's just the doubt you had. You asked a question. It's all right. There's no problem.
And the question is, is it better that we leave science completely, or that we do some science but Krishna consciousness science? Because I think that not all science is wrong. For example, a man who invented the printing machine, he not with intention, but he done enormous service to Krishna consciousness movement, because how would the devotee sell books?
But that's not science. That's technology. There's a difference.
Anything.
In technology, we can accept in Krishna's service. We will accept the printing press. We will accept computers. We will program computers. We will do all these things in Krishna's service. There's no problem. Because it's being used directly in Krishna's service. But when they talk about science, and they're making conclusions about the material world without having evidence, there's observation, experimentation, and conclusion. This is the scientific method. So they have never observed life come from matter. They have never made an experiment to prove that life comes from matter. But they dare to conclude that life comes from matter. It is that rascal that we reject.
So if one makes use of things like computers, and if we can use the things, so one can make the things and be a devotee. But if one concludes on the basis of science that there is no God, that person is a rascal.
He's a demon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We have plenty of scientifically minded people in our movement. If they're quite good at it, some of them they preach with the Bhaktivedanta Institute. And they are speaking about science in a revolutionary way. So they're talking about consciousness. Actually, only a devotee knows what is consciousness. Otherwise, scientists try to speculate what is consciousness. They cannot know it. So, if you are a very learned scientist, then you may use your scientific knowledge to preach for Krishna. Then it is good. But if you use your scientific knowledge to proclaim there is no God, there is no controller, there is no truth, it is all chance, then you've ruined your life. So everybody can be engaged in Krishna's service. It's just a question of having the right direction. What?
I have heard that you're going to use some computer programs and new generations and stuff.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, I heard about new program, computer program that you're going to use to make something from
Me? I just use basic things. I have no need for anything fancy on a computer. I don't know where you heard that, that's some completely false rumor. Yes.
Danas sam pročitao da osoba je propovedala svjesnost Krišne mora biti opunomoćena od Krišne. E sad, na koji način je to osoba opunomoćena od Krišne i da li mora imati neke prethodne kvalifikacije? Šta to znači stvari biti opunomoćena od Krišne?
We have read that the person, in order to preach, has to be empowered with Krishna. What does it mean? How?
No, anyone can preach. Whether he's empowered or not empowered, he can preach. But the result is different. The one who's not empowered, when he preaches, he doesn't get much result. The one who is empowered, when he preaches, he gets very great result. Therefore, it is stated that Krishna Shakti Vina Nahe Tar Bhavartana. Without being empowered by Krishna, you cannot spread Krishna consciousness all over the world.
What that means that somebody is empowered?
It means that Krishna empowers you. The spiritual master empowers you. He gives you the Shakti to preach, Krishna Shakti.
Does it need some qualification?
Yeah, you have to know what you're talking about. If you don't know what you're talking about, then you have a very hard time preaching. And how do you know what you're talking about? You repeat the words of Srila Prabhupada, you repeat the words of your spiritual master. Then you can become qualified. And then when you become qualified and you actually go out and preach, then you can get Shakti. It especially comes when you're very enthusiastic to preach. When you're very enthusiastic to preach, and that means you have a good preaching spirit, then that preaching spirit brings you to Krishna Shakti.
She has two questions. First question is, it is said that Krishna always fulfills spiritual desires. For example, if two devotees have same desire, for example, to be a personal servant of his spiritual master, how Krishna can arrange both of them fulfill their desires?
One time one can be the personal servant.
Second question is it true that if you cannot get path from spiritual master, that you cannot get blessed?
No, it is not that the only mercy there is in the form of the club. That's one specific form of mercy. There are other forms of mercy too. And you can get those forms just as well. Don't think that you have to get the club on the head.
Ask you something about Sankirtan.
Good.
Sometimes when we're in the street, our words, they don't have effect. We try, we want, we showing book from all sides, but there is no result. So, can you say something why?
Right. Because we have become puffed up. We have thought, I am very great, and Krishna is now showing you you're not so great. Or we have thought, I am the doer. I am the one who is distributing these books. And Krishna is now showing you, no, it is not you who is distributing these books. Because now you can't, just try. Or Krishna is trying to increase your desire. Maybe you became lazy. Your desire was not very strong to distribute. So therefore Krishna is pushing it down a little so that it will blaze up even higher. So these are some possible explanations as to what is wrong. And you should then go through your mind these explanations when you're on Sankirtan and this problem is coming, and then make necessary corrections. If you're puffed up, then become humble and surrender to Krishna. If you think you're the doer, then understand that you have nothing to do with it whatsoever, except that you try to inspire the super soul in the heart of the other living entity to take the book. And if you become lazy, then blaze that fire of desire on the altar of sacrifice called Sankirtan, and come again to the point of renewed enthusiasm.
I also want to ask, sometimes I don't have enough strength because is it probably something sudden or something?
Oh, you mean physical strength?
Yes. We have maybe I have a desire also, desirable. Physically, I cannot sometimes. So what?
Maybe you need a little more rest. So if that's the point, take a little more rest, and then go out with great strength. If you're too much tired, then you can't do it. Sankirtan is a hard work. The Sankirtan devotees need a little more rest, extra rest. And make sure you get good prasadam. But I think you're getting good
Sometimes when I make mistakes, I think now I realize that and I don't want to do that again. But in another situation, I again can make the same mistake. Actually, what does it mean when we really realize our mistakes?
Well, you can realize you made a mistake, but the proof that you don't really realize what the mistake is that you do it again. The real mistake is that you didn't surrender to Krishna. And therefore you make so many material mistakes one after another. So when one actually surrenders to Krishna and becomes advanced, then the root cause of making mistakes becomes clarified, becomes pure. And that root cause of making mistakes is called ahankara, or false ego. The false identity. I'm the enjoyer, I'm the controller. I am this material body. And through this body I will enjoy. This is the first mistake, the original mistake. And when that mistake is corrected. When you surrender to Krishna, the false ego becomes dissolved. Then you will be able to really make the proper correction. It's impossible to pick who to call on next, you know. I don't know who to call on next. There's 30 hands up. What should I do? It's terrible. I have fallen completely on the mental platform. Now I'm full of dualities. I don't know what to do. Okay. Did I pick somebody?
We can recognize in some situations that it is Krishna's plan. Sometimes we are pushing some things, but we cannot know exactly is it our plan or Krishna's plan. Because sometimes in some situations it doesn't go everything nicely. And maybe it is just we can accept it as plans, or it is not Krishna's desire.
You can know what is Krishna's desire when it is the desire of the spiritual master. If the spiritual master has a desire, then you know that is Krishna's desire. Or, if in our movement, the GBCs and temple presidents have this desire, it's authorized activity, then you can know it's also Krishna's desire. Just because something is difficult or there are obstacles does not mean it is not Krishna's desire. Just like Prabhupada wanted for Krishna a wonderful temple in Bombay, but there were so many obstacles, unlimited obstacles, he had to overcome. Prabhupada never said, it's not Krishna's desire, let's give it up. Although we said like that many times. The Prabhupada said, never, I will never give up. Actually, he didn't say, I will never give up. At one point he said, look, if the man gives us back our money, then we will leave peacefully. But the man was a demon. He didn't want to give back the money. So therefore, it was Krishna. Because had the man given back the money, which was a very small amount of money, then we would have left, and there would have been no temple on Hare Krishna land. It would have been somewhere else. But Krishna said to the man, no, don't give it back. And the man said, no, I will keep it. The Prabhupada said, we will fight to the finish. Because Krishna wanted that temple there. And it's a great place for a temple. Pastimes from Cairo. Cairo. I just did. You get what you get.
I cannot understand the position of Vyasadeva because how could he became bewildered or unsatisfied when he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam because it is said that
He didn't write Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore he became dissatisfied. He wrote everything else but Srimad Bhagavatam.
But how it is possible because it said that he was powerful incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
That is, he's the literary incarnation of the Supreme Lord, that's true. But he did so much work, so many books he wrote, but he was not feeling satisfied. And why not? Because he still had not directly come out and glorified Krishna personally, without any doubt, unequivocally. So therefore Narada Muni came, who's his spiritual master, and told him what to do. So you may be wondering, how is this possible? But that's just what happened.
But why he didn't write Srimad Bhagavatam Immediately.
Because he was busy writing Vedanta Sutra, Mahabharata. You cannot question why he didn. Do this, why he didn't do that. He did what he did, and this is history. You simply are remembering the history of what he did. Now to ask why he didn't do it, then you have to go ask Vyasadeva yourself. How many answers you, then you can tell me.
Explained that Lord Chaitanya received one sonnet from a Bhattacharya. Immediately when he received his feelings of separation become double intense, and he very soon left behind. So I'm going to explain a bit more of this video.
It's very simple. Advaitacharya said, everyone in the world, in the marketplace, has enough rice. There is no more business to sell rice because everybody has it. The marketplace is closed. There's no more rice needed. So what he meant to say was that everywhere in the world, everybody is flooded with love of Godhead. Or at least in Indian portion of it. Everyone's flooded with love of Godhead. And nobody needs it anymore because they've all got it. So therefore there's no need for Lord Chaitanya to remain. Because Advaitacharya, he called Lord Chaitanya down to this earth. And so, when Lord Chaitanya heard this, he said, that is his order. Because Advaitacharya calls the deity down, and he also sends the deity back. That's part of deity worship. You can call the deity to a form, worship him for some time, then send him back when you're finished worshiping him. So Lord Chaitanya then understood his mission to deliver all the fallen souls was complete. Now, his only business, he had no other business, his only business was to taste love of Godhead. And that he did. Okay, one girl, one boy. Yes?
What does it mean to serve spiritual master in a sentimental way?
This question we hear it all the time. Sometimes you get bored answering the same question over and over again. Sentimental way means that it's not according to the order of the spiritual master. It's according to your sentiment. Very simple. Actually, you could say a lot about this, but I got bored of this question. Yes?
What is the most important qualification which a disciple needs to have in order to satisfy the spiritual master?
He should follow the instructions of the spiritual master. Not in a sentimental way, but and according to his intelligence, as he has received the instruction through the ear, he should follow it with his mind fixed on surrendering to the mission of the spiritual master. The spiritual master gives you a mission. He tells you, you must do this. And the mission is clear. We have to make everybody Krishna conscious. And we'll do that by distributing books and distributing prasadam and chanting the holy name and doing all kinds of different things for Krishna's satisfaction. But that's the mission. It's been given, so now we have to take it. And then we will satisfy the spiritual master very nicely.
sometimes I'm in situation to sometimes I'm in a situation when I can recognize that I'm not sincere in spiritual life, and that I'm not so qualified to do the proper way the things. But on the other side, I'm not so afraid and disturbed, and I'm not getting more enthusiasm how I can solve the problem. She's just afraid, but she's not more enthusiastic. She's just afraid because of the situation, but still she's not enthusiastic.
If you study these books more carefully, then you will become convinced in your intelligence, in your mind and intelligence, that this is correct action. And you should also hear from saintly persons. First you have to find some saintly persons to listen to, and then you hear from them. And by hearing them, by reading the books of Srila Prabhupada, you become convinced that this is what you've got to do. Become a devotee, surrender to Krishna, serve Krishna. And then you become naturally enthusiastic once you are convinced. When you're not convinced, then you're not enthusiastic. When you are convinced, then you become very enthusiastic.
Once I already asked this question, but I want to hear yours. I am bewildered of appearance of Patanjali. He's appeared in Kali Yuga, and in his Yoga Sutra, he gave us Ashtanga Yoga process. Why he's appeared in Kali Yuga, and what is his purpose?
I'm not at all an expert in Patanjali. He's not even considered a Vaishnava. So I don't know much about him. Sorry.
About science, I don't see any connection mathematics with material work. What do you think about that?
Mathematics.
Yes.
You think mathematics is not a bad thing?
Yes.
Well, it may not be a bad thing. It doesn't theorize there's no God or there's no controller or anything. In fact, you can use mathematics to prove that there is a controller.
Yes. Can serve to Krishna's science.
Sure. So can physics, so can biology, so can chemistry. Mathematics is just... Huh?
Not in a way as mathematics.
Probably. Mathematics is quite harmless in the right hands. Otherwise, you can use mathematics to build an atomic bomb. Yeah, mathematics is a very important part of physics, especially in quantum mathematics, quantum physics, where they don't have their mathematics together. So that also proves some things.
Possible Krishna living in Java. What is the original Krishna actually do in Vrindavan? Because
He continues with his pastimes, but they're called aprakrita lila. They're not manifested for us to see.
everybody lamented.
What?
Everybody lamented in separation.
No, but Krishna is living in their hearts. He's living in their hearts. Therefore, their separation from him is because their feelings of separation from him is because he's actually in their hearts. And in those feelings of separation, there's great satisfaction because he's actually still there. That's the highest Vipralambha Seva, the highest principle of spiritual life.
Srila Prabhupada natural instruction gave 5 items in cultivating the devotional service. And third of it is remembering Krishna. And I was confused because I thought remembering was just a literal thing. And when I read it, I thought that one can actually remember. So I was confused.
I'm not sure what you mean. Remembering Krishna. Well, let me just explain what remembering Krishna is. Remembering Krishna means, just like we just explained in this other question here, it means thinking of Krishna's pastimes, thinking of Krishna's words, thinking of Krishna's form, thinking of Krishna's qualities and characteristics. This is what it means, remembering Krishna.
Yes, and Srila Prabhupada said that at first that remembering is a little bit interrupted, and
Yes.
after that is uninterrupted.
Yes.
Then remembering is literally remembering.
Yeah, remembering Krishna all the time. You're thinking. In other words, you're thinking of Krishna all the time.
I thought that one can actually remember. It was a little difficult.
It means thinking of Krishna all the time. You can actually think of Krishna all the time. But what are you doing? You're remembering all the pastimes of Krishna, one after another. That's how you're thinking of Krishna.
This Shirishma, you wrote me in a letter that if I come to the temple and live with devotees, I can realize your points which you wrote me in a letter. And in that way it can help me to become real devotee. Please tell me in this moment what does it mean for me? Because I can see that without the association of devotees, I cannot. The association of devotees is very important for me, and if I don't do that, my spiritual life will be completely destroyed if I continue my material conditioned life.
What's the question? Because it sounds like you understood the answer already. What's the question? It's perfectly correct. Without associating with devotees, you cannot advance in spiritual life. That's a fact. So what's the problem?
How I can come in association with devotees.
How? You just walk in the door and say, I'm
There are some problems.
There's always problems. This is Kali Yuga. What do you expect? Kali Yuga means problems. Tons of problems. There's always problems. But part of the bliss of Kali Yuga is to solve the problem. So you get problem, then you solution, then you feel very good. I have solved the problem. So you just should take all these problems in hand and solve them, and you'll be very happy. That's all I do all day long, is solve problems. That's my devotional service. I'm a problem solver. Let's see, that was a boy now ago. Yes? Okay. Mm-hmm.
You said that it can happen that 1 week before I understand what it is. I just wanted to ask you.
Not just to understand. Understand Bhagavad Gita you can understand by reading it. It's not that difficult. But to really understand Bhagavad Gita may take the whole life. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask if one becomes like an expert in Bhagavad Gita. Is that book enough alone? Even if one is not so much introduced in other literature without teaching?
If you know Bhagavad Gita perfectly well, you can preach to anybody. You may have difficulty with certain things like the creation, or certain more Vedic scientific things which are explained in the Bhagavatam. And you may be missing some points, but if you just know Bhagavad Gita, you can preach everywhere very nicely. But Prabhupada wanted us to learn Srimad Bhagavatam also, and Chaitanya Charitamrita also, and these other books that he presented. So you shouldn't just say, I'll just learn Bhagavad Gita perfectly. No, you just learn all the books perfectly.
And I also want to ask, sometimes I have a desire to start to know some more about something. But then on the other hand, I just want to feel unbalanced regarding like association of devotees.
No, you associate with devotees, you read their books, you do some service, you go on Sankirtan, you preach, you do all these things, you do everything. You don't just all day long sit down and read. That's not possible. Although it's possible, but it's very difficult. So you have to do everything. You do all the different things in devotional service. And then gradually, you build up your knowledge and your strength in devotional life by doing everything. Okay, that's it. Tomorrow I'll give class, but it'll be a short class. It'll have to end by 8:30. So, you know that. So, and then I have to leave. I have to drive back to Sofia. Get on an airplane. So, there probably won't be any questions tomorrow. Hare Krishna.